Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me show you how to choose menu items, trigger key presses, and even click elements using the Shortcuts app. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. Now the Shortcuts app on your Mac is great for automating things. But a lot of times people want to do some very basic things like choosing a specific menu item in an app or triggering a key press or even clicking a button or some other element that they can see on the screen. Shortcuts doesn't have a straightforward way to do this. But you can use scripting in Shortcuts, and scripting can actually do all three of these things. But I should warn you that this doesn't work as smoothly as you would probably like. Sometimes it's difficult to figure out the right sequence of commands, and in some apps they just don't seem to work at all. This also takes some amount of programming ability and a lot of patience, so this is a little more advanced than most of the tutorials I do on Shortcuts. So let's start with a simple task. Suppose I want to open TextEdit and start a new document. To do this without Shortcuts, normally I would launch TextEdit and then I would choose File, New. Now it's easy enough in Shortcuts to open an app, but how do you choose File, New? So let's create a new shortcut here. And I could use the Open App command here to open TextEdit. But I'm actually going to do that within the script because it's just one more line. So instead I'm going to search for JavaScript and I'm going to choose Run JavaScript for Mac Automation. JavaScript and AppleScript can both do the same things, but I prefer JavaScript. It's a much more modern solution that makes a lot more sense. Now here's the script that will actually get this done. If you look at the first line here, it just takes the application TextEdit and activates it. So it will launch it if it's not already launched. Otherwise it'll bring it to the front. The second line will set a variable called app to application system events.processes and then in square brackets TextEdit. So it will find the TextEdit app that's running and get its process. TextEdit's an app that sits as a file in your applications folder, but the process is the actual running app, and this is what we need to issue commands to it. Now we want to use app here and then look at the menu bars. There's only going to be one, so we'll get it, and of course arrays are zero base, so 0 is the first menu bar. Then we're going to look at the menus in the menu bar, and then we're going to get them by name, looking for the menu called File. Then we're going to look for the menu item called New. And then we're going to issue the command click to it. So this should be the same as choosing File, New. Let's run this and see. And there it launched TextEdit and we have a new document. Now what if you want to go deeper in a menu? For instance, under Edit there's Insert and then Line Break. Let's say we want to have a shortcut that as some part of what it does it's going to use Edit, Insert, Line Break. Well, we need to dig deeper into the Insert menu. And actually there are many steps here because there's the Edit menu and then there's the Insert menu item here and then the Insert menu here and then the menu item Line Break. So here's the code that will do that. The first two lines are the same as before. And we're going to start the third line off by looking at the only menu bar and the menus there and then looking for the Edit menu. Then we're going to look at the menu items for Insert. And the Insert menu item has a menu under it also called Insert as I showed before. Then we'll look for the menu item Line Break and click that. So now when I run this you can see it goes to TextEdit. I had this document still open and you can see how it inserted a line break there. So that's how you access submenus. So next let's take a look at key presses. Key presses are a little easier once you realize that they're system-wide. So you're not going to tell an app that there is a key being pressed. You just tell the system and the system is going to apply that key to whatever window is at the front, just like if you were to type on your keyboard. So there's only really one line of scripting you need for that. Here's that line. All you need is application system event, which is the system, and then you're going to issue the command keystroke and then whatever key is pressed, in this case the letter A. So when I run this you actually see it types the letter A in the current app, which is in this case Shortcuts. Now what happens if you want a modifier key for that? Well then you would simply add this, a second parameter to keystroke, and you put in curly brackets using and then in square brackets a list of modifiers. In this case the modifier we want is command down and then we close the square and curly brackets there. So we could add a second item here that is, say, Option down as well. Now this will issue a Command A, which should select all. So when I run this, you can see how it selected all of the text there. If TextEdit had been the app that's running, it would have selected all the text there. I can actually add this TextEdit Activate line right here, and now when I run this, it will actually launch TextEdit, and then it uses Command A to select all. So now what you have is two ways to actually issue commands. One is to choose from a menu or submenu. Another is to issue keyboard commands, and you can use these with modifier keys. In general, I find it's more reliable to use the keyboard shortcuts for things. So in the previous example, instead of choosing File New from the menu, we could have simply issued a Command N key press. Both would have done the same thing, but over different apps and different situations, I find Command N is a little more reliable than File New. Now if you ever need to use a key press that's not a typable character, like say an arrow key, then you can use key code instead of key stroke. Notice the C is capitalized in key code. And then you give it a number. And then you could look up Mac key codes online and find a variety of different places that list them. The left arrow key, for instance, is key code 123. So if I were to run this, you could see how it acted as if I pressed the left arrow key. I can run it again, and you could see how the left arrow key again has been pressed. So the next thing is actually clicking on interface items. Things like buttons, for instance. This turns out to be much more difficult to do, mostly because you need to specify exactly what thing is clicked, and figuring that out is very difficult. The apps don't just reveal that. You actually have to test and work to actually figure out how to reference a specific item. For instance, let's go to System Settings. And in System Settings, when you launch it, you are automatically on Appearance. Let's say we wanted to have a shortcut that took us to General instead of Appearance. Well, one way to do that would be to click General, just like I did. So how can we get shortcuts to click General? So here's the code that will do that. First, we're going to bring System Settings to the front or launch it. Then we're going to get the process System Settings so we can use it to trigger an action. So here it is down here, and then we're going to look for the first window and the first group and then the first splitter group and then the first group inside that, the first scroll area, then something called an outline, and then a row, and then we're not going to click it, we're going to select it. Figuring this all out is incredibly difficult. Obviously this element is deep down nested inside of other elements in the user interface. Now let's try running this, and you can see it will work. It will bring System Settings to the front and select General. If I wanted to select Screen Time, I'd go to row 10. There's kind of this divider here. So I'm going to have to subtract 2. And now when I run it, it will go to Screen Time. But I run into a problem if I quit System Settings and then I try this. It's going to hit me with an error there because what's happening is that it launches System Settings and then plows ahead to try to do this before the System Settings app is really launched. So if I use Open App instead, put it here, and then choose System Settings, and then maybe a wait right here, then I can have System Settings quit. It will open it up first, wait that 1 second, then run that JavaScript, and you can see it works fine. Now how do you figure out that General is buried deep down inside of all those groups and splitter groups and outlines and rows and all of that? Well, one way is to use a script like this. This I'm running in Script Editor because I could just easily see the output. And this will basically get an app that's running and go through all of the different objects and all the different windows. So I want to make sure System Settings is running here. So then at the bottom here I want to switch to the list view here and go to Messages so I can see the messages that are being outputted by console.log. And when I run this, you can see it's going to run through all of the windows of System Settings and show me all of the different elements. And eventually I'll figure out where the elements are and be able to kind of trace it back. Again, it's a pretty advanced technique. If you're experienced with programming, you could probably figure out this and then use that to recreate this route to finding that exact item. Here's another example of how that can be used. This will activate TextEdit. It's going to assume that it's already running, so it's not going to wait or anything for it to launch. Then it's going to issue the keyboard shortcut Command P, which will print. Then it's going to go and look at TextEdit. It's going to look at buttons and it's going to click this button. Which button is that? Well, it turns out that that's the PDF button. So when I run this, you can see go to TextEdit and then bring up the print dialog, and now it's saving as a PDF. So it works as a way to bring up the print dialog and click this PDF button, something I know some people have asked for. So then the only trick there is figuring out that it's the first window, first sheet, first splitter group, second group, and then first button in that group. And that's what is needed to be clicked. It's definitely very difficult to figure that out, but it is possible if you have some skill and you're persistent. Now if you don't have the skills to be able to do this, or you just can't get what you want to do to work, there is an alternative, and that's the highly respected Keyboard Maestro app. I have no affiliation with them. I just love their app and use it for a variety of different things. It makes it really easy to find and click buttons and do other automations on your Mac. And it's what I usually recommend to people who can't figure out how to do all of the advanced coding that's needed in JavaScript to get things done. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.